Okay, in this video I'm going to record descriptive statistics, chapter 2. In the previous recording I explained to you that statistics can be descriptive and inferential. So descriptive is the one that do collecting data, organizing data, meaning sorting out, taking out weeds, and then analyzing data and make out sense out of the results. So let's explore the methods of descriptive statistics. Okay. It's not moving. Too bad. Okay. So what am I going to cover here in chapter 2, section 2.1, frequency distribution and their graphs, 2.2, more graphs and displays. I will cover central tendency, variation, position. Okay, let's go. Frequency distributions and their graph, section 2.1. So we are going to learn how to construct frequency distribution, and then frequency histogram, frequency polynomial, polygons I'm not going to cover, and ogives I'm not going to cover. So it's going to be frequency histogram and relative frequency histogram. Okay. Let's assume we have some database of I don't know, people's age between 1 year old and all the way to 30 year old. So as you can see here, we have 1 year old and then 30-year old. When we have such a variety of ages, it's quite complicated to make a research on such a wide spectrum of ages. Therefore, it makes sense to break down these ages into groups, correct? That will be because they will have the similar characteristics, and then you can make a research group by group, right? So at this point, let's say it's broken down into class between 1 and 5, and then 6 and 10, 11, 15, and so on. So those are the 1 and 5, 6 and 10, 11, okay. 11, 15, 16, and 20, it shows classes. We call it classes. Here it is. Those are classes. Okay, frequency. Frequency meaning, let's say, how many people are between age of 1 and 5 in the database. So they counted 5. 8 people, they counted between age, let's say, 6 and 10. 6 people counted between age 11 and 15. So frequency. Obviously, if we add up all this frequency, we will get the amount of people in the database, right? If we add them up, by the way, when we add them up, this same symbol, it's called summation. Summation is equal, let me see how much. So 5 plus 8 is 13, plus 6 is 19, plus 8, 27, plus 5, 32, plus 4, 36. So there are total, in the sample, there are total 36 people. So this is the frequency of class, is the number of data entries in the class. So 1, 6, 11, 16, 21, 26, that's what we call low class. And 5 and 10 and 15 and so forth, we call upper class limit. So lower class limits and upper class limits. Now, class width, how we are going to calculate class width. Obviously, you would jump, let's say, do 5 minus 1. No. Class width identified between two low limit of the class. 6 minus 5, 6 minus 1, 11 minus 6, 16 minus 11, so it will be class width, which is going to be 5. Same way, 10 minus 5, it's going to be 5, 15 minus 10, and so on, 20 minus 15. That's what class width is about. Difference between two sequence lower class limits. Okay. How to construct frequency distribution. There are a bunch of instructions how to construct step by step. Now, if I blindly read it, it's not going to help you anyhow, because it's better to see once than hear 10 times. But what you can do right now, you can put this video on a pause and write down all these steps. And so later on, after this, once I start constructing frequency distribution, you will see I'm following these steps anyway. So let me see. There we go. Those are all steps. And you have actually PowerPoint presentation in your files. You can download that file, that PowerPoint, and take out these instructions from there also. It must be the latest slide 8, because here we have slide 9. So, example, constructing a frequency distribution. So what do we have? It's a business example. So let's assume we have a sample of GPS, 30 of them. We need to construct frequency distribution with the purpose to do analysis. How is business doing when we need to reorder? Based on what to reorder, how many reorder, and which one order at all, which one not order. So here is our database. We have $90 worth. We have $90 worth GPS, 130, 400, and so on. So total 30. So 3 lines and 10 on each line. Okay, so let's based on this example, let's construct frequency distribution. So first thing, number of classes, it's always going to be given 7. It is by default, it's by agreement, rather saying, the number of classes are usually using minimum between 5 and 20. Why? Because less than 5 doesn't make sense to do sample. Let's say you don't do sample out of 3 people, right? And might as well all 3 people you bring entire population. If it's free, sample is free, then population cannot be more than 10, for example. So, and if it's more than 20, then it's sampling is just as much complicated as population. Therefore, the best, the golden middle is between 5 and 20. In our case, we are not going to, in our course, we are not going to calculate number of classes. It's always going to be given to us. Now, in this example, it says number of classes 7. Next, we are going to find out the class width. To find out class width, we are going to use maximum minus minimum over amount of classes. What is our maximum? 450. If we look around, this is 450, that indeed maximum. And the minimum is 59. So max minus minimum over number of classes, we get approximately 55.86, which round up, it's getting 56. One thing you need to know, it's crucially important. In statistics, mainly we are dealing with a life existence, breathing existence, be it people, be it animals, be it birds, trees. Also, they are breathing oxygen. They are giving out oxygen. So that said, every time when we get class width, let's say if I get 45.01, that means I'm going to round up to 46. It's gonna be meaning-wise rounding, not algebraic rounding. By algebraic rounding, it would be 45. But because we are dealing with life existence, we are not going to move one finger that will match 0.01 decimal notation, correct? So therefore, we can get one number higher, no matter what. Okay. Next, number 3, we are going to construct frequency distribution. We start the constructing frequency distribution by placing the lowest number, 59 in this case, in this table. Then, since we know that our width is 56 from the previous calculation here, 56, see? Then from the lowest limit, 59, we are adding 56, getting 115. Then another 56, 171, another 56, another 56, and so on. Now, how we figure out upper limit? If here we have 115, upper limit for this has to end as an 114. So it would continue 115. And it's 115 lower limit, then upper limit is going to be 170, because I'm looking here, I have here 171, so it has to finish with 170. So we can have continuous the interval. Let me see. Here we go. See, we have here upper limit. If it's 115 here, then we're going to have 114, 171, 170, 27 to 26, and the lastly 395, 394, and then how we found is 450 plus 56, right? And we get 450. So this is how we build our frequency distribution with class width 56. So if you subtract 170 minus 114, 56, 56, 56, and so on. Well, that's what exactly it's showing here. Next, I don't use this. So what we're going to do now, go back to our example. So these marks I'm not using. I'm going to count frequency. How many GPS was sold for the price between 59 and 114. Let's check one of them, and the rest we'll just can't trust. So we see here it says only 5 of them for the price 59 and 114. Going back to database, 59 and 114. So let's see if we can collect 5 of them. So 90, 70. Okay, what do we have? 59. And then here is 100, and here is 95. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So total 5 indeed, which means the rest I just simply will trust them how they counted that frequency. Okay. So if I add them up, this frequency, I will figure out how many, we should get total 30, right? Because at the beginning of the problem, it says there are total 30 GPS. So let's check it one more time. Here, the summation, this is the sum. Actually, this symbol, Excel also using as a sum. So let's add 5 plus 8 is 13, plus 6 is 19, plus 5 is 24, plus 2 is 26, plus 1, 27, plus 3 is 30. Precisely the amount of GPS it was mentioned at the beginning of the task. Who doesn't believe me, you can open your PowerPoint, scroll back, and you will see. It's talking about precisely 30 GPS. Selling 30 GPS. Okay, next we are going to need, to constructing the graph, we will need a midpoint of the class. How do we figure out midpoint of the class? We take the lowest level, 59, let's say in this case, and 114 highest level, add them up, see, lower level plus upper level, and divide it by 2. This is going to give us 86.5. Now here is given only 3 examples, and that's why at the end we have here dashes like that, which means there is continuation. We have more than that, right? We have all the way to 450. But here it's just for understanding, so we can understand how they did. They just showed 3, considering 3 will be enough. And by the way, as you count midpoint for each class, between this midpoint, between 86.5 and 142.5, you will see the class width again, 56. That's going to be our class width. Now here we will see the frequency we wrote down. Now let's find out relative frequency. What is relative frequency? It's showing what percentage of these, let's say, of this GPS, which means the price of 59 and 114, how many percent that sales made out of total sale. Okay, out of total sale. How we gonna find out? We take every single frequency and divide by total amount of sample size. Sample size is total amount of GPS that was under research. So it's gonna be, well, 5 over 30, 0.17, 0.27, it's gonna be 0.2. How we did that? We take this frequency, we divide it by total amount 30, we take this frequency, divide it by total amount, and so on. Now 0.17, 0.27, 0.2, it's in the format of decimal notation. To find percentage, we multiply by 100, which will be 17%, 27%, 20%. So this is relative frequency. We add it to the table. Cumulative frequency. When do we use cumulative frequency? When, let's say, we want to know how many total GPS was sold between price 59 and 226, let's say. Between price 59 and 226. What do we do at this point? We take the frequency, first frequency is 5, adding this 8 will be 13. This 13 shows that between 59 and 170. 19, then add another 6 for this, the third one, we will get 19. 19 shows total 19 GPS was sold between price 59 and 226 based on this cumulative frequency we calculated. Okay? Now here we have the full picture of everything we just figured out. Frequency that we calculate based on given database sample we are given for each class. Midpoint, what did we do? Lowest level at upper level, divide by 2, and we get midpoint for every single one of them. Next, relative frequency, when we take frequency and divide by total amount, and then 8 divided by total amount, 6 divided by total amount, and we get here relative frequency in decimal notation. And lastly, it's a cumulative frequency if we want to know some portion of the of some GPS, let's say between, if we need to know between 59 and 282. So we will go from here all the way here. So total was sold 24 GPS that was priced between $59 and $282. All right, now let's build the graph. Frequency distribution. This bar graph we call histogram. This is how histogram looks like. What's the difference between histogram and bar graphs? The difference is bar graphs have space. Histogram, as you can see, doesn't have any space between them. And we use histogram for large sample size. What we call large sample size? That's a sample size that is greater than 30. Horizontal scale represent quantitative and measure of data value. Those are class width. Let's say each one of them is a class width. And vertically, it's going to be your frequency measures. We will see in a minute. We are going to build next one. So, here's what is interesting, guys. If you look at the class width, 59, 114, 115, 270. So here ends with 114 and start with 115. Ends with 170 and start with 171. As you can see, there is a gap, right, between low level between 114 and 115, gap by 1. And we said our histogram, it's not supposed to have any gap. Yes? Okay. How we gonna adjust? So here we need to correct something. We need to adjust. How we are going to adjust? Let me bring example from life. Let's say two neighbors live two next to each other, and between them there is a land, doesn't belong to neither of them. As a peaceful neighbors, what they will do? They will split, right, evenly that land, half and half. So both of them are happy. Same thing we are doing here. Here we have 114, and here we start with 115. So we split this gap at the one, 0.5 and 0.5, which means this upper limit is gonna, like 114, gonna gain 0.5, and the low limit for the next class is gonna give up by 0.5. So here it is, 114, it's getting 114 and a half, 170 get 170 and a half, and so on. And lower limit 115 is giving up by 0.5, see? And this way we treated the gap, so 114.5 start with 114.5, 282.5 and 282.5. There is no gap between them anymore. All right, we got very close to constructing histogram. So, here we have class width, here we have boundaries, here we have midpoint, and we have frequency of these GPS navigators. So let's build our histogram. Here it is, with midpoint 86.5, we have frequency 5 GPS with midpoint 86.5. Let me go back. Here it is, only 5 with midpoint 86.5, 8 with midpoint 142.5. If we look here, 86.5, and we have 5 of them, 142.5, we have 8 of them, and so on. 198 and a half, total 6 of them. So here we have our frequency distribution histogram. And this histogram using midpoint. Why we are mentioning using midpoint? Because we will see same histogram can use class boundaries also. Now, looking at the histogram, let's say you are that store owner that sells GPS. What conclusion you can draw? You can draw the following conclusion, that the most popular GPS are the ones that sold between 86.5 and 254.5 midpoint dollars, right? So you will know that these price limits are the most in demand. The least in demand is this price, 366 and 5 midpoint. Well, $422.50 are three of them, but we are focused on this one. So this way you will know how many to order or which type of GPS. Is it useful? You bet. Because if you don't know how many to order of which, it's going to be disaster. Your business can lose the money. Highly likely. Here it is given in the format of class boundaries: 58.5, 114.5, 170.5, 226.5, and so on, based on boundaries. And it's a frequency here also. 5, right? 5, and then here we have 8, and then here we have 6, and so on, based on frequency. Okay? Polygon we are not covering. Frequency polygon, gone. Relative frequency histogram. Relative frequency histogram is going to show percentage-wise how much each type of GPS was sold, percentage-wise. So the only difference between frequency histogram, relative frequency, the histogram is on this y-axis. We will have relative frequency, which means percentage instead of amount of frequency. So here is our relative frequency. The rest we are familiar is a class width. Here it's going to use bandwidth, so you will witness how to use also class bandwidth. And based on that, we will have relative frequency. Class boundaries we are going to use as an x-axis. And relative frequency we are going to use as a y-axis. We will see now. Here it is, relative frequency, see? It goes as a y. And you can see those are all percentages: 0, 15, 15%, 0, 20, 20%, and so on. And x-axis, it's going to be your boundary, okay? Your class boundaries: 58.5, 114.5, 170. You can go back and check again. All right, let's go back here. 58.5, 114.5, 170.5, starting to 26.5, and so on. So here we have. So what information you can gather? It's like I said, from relative frequency, we can gather the information of percentage of the GPS. At this point, it would say total. If this is our most popular one, what percentage do we have here? This was how much? How many percent this was? 17%. 17%. This is 27%. What else? This is 20%. And this one is 17% again. So if we calculate how many percent total, it's gonna be, it's more than, that's how we knew it, more than 50%. 17 times 2, here it is 17 and 17. 17 times 2, 34. With this 20 will be 54, and 27, it will be even 54 and 27, 81%. So more than 50%. It's between price 58.5 and 282.5 margin price, because this is boundary of the selling prices. Okay. All right. So we are moving here to 2.2. I guess I will record in the next lecture, so it would be easy for you to watch 2.1, go do homework 2.1, and then watch 2.2, do homework 2.2. So 2.2 recording will come right after 2.1. Okay, where did this go? Okay, here it is.